Good evening and welcome to the Exposing Deception podcast. I am your host, Brian Delory, and I thank you all for tuning into the program this evening. And on tonight's program, I'm going to be presenting a message on understanding Islam, and actually I entitled it, my gosh, I forgot the title. Understanding Islam is the basic title. Anyhow, I'm going to be speaking about that. I'm not an expert on the Islamic faith. However, I have studied it enough. I put it to you this way: I've studied it enough to be able to elucidate a broad message on the subject of Islam. Now, this message comes on the heels of the latest terrorist attacks in the United States, in Orlando, Florida, at the nightclub, at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, and I just feel that people don't really have a very good understanding of Islam, and so they say things about Islam that are not true. For example, you often hear the statement radical Islam or Muslim extremist. And there really is no such thing because those who are carrying out the terrorist attacks are what is known as Islam fundamentalists. They go back to the very beginnings of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad back in the year 610 AD, and they want to try to put themselves back in that era. So when people say Islam extremist or Muslim extremist or radical Islam, those are really misnomers because the people who are carrying out the attacks are actually the ones who take and interpret the Quran literally, like we interpret our Bible literally. And so and that's the way it's to be taken. I mean, all you have to do is study the history of Islam to see that Islam is as Islam does. I mean, if you study the history of Islam, it's a bloodthirsty religion, and it was begun by Muhammad. I forgot his last name, but you can look all of this up on Google. Like I said, I'm not an expert, and I don't have everything committed to memory, but I'm doing my best to present this message just to give you a basic understanding of what is happening and why things are being said about Islam that are not true. And it's because people just don't understand that Islam hasn't evolved since it began in the 9th century or 8th or 9th century. It's you're talking about a religion that a mindset rather that is still back in that time, in that era. And so that's why they view the world through the eyes of the Quran. That's the way they view it. And they view you as an enemy of Islam, and therefore you must be eliminated. It's just that simple. But anyhow, people are making these statements because they don't have a true understanding of Islam. This isn't a religion that these so-called extremists have hijacked. This is what the religion is all about. It's all about conquest and subjugation, nothing less than that. And so this is why they do what they do, and they've been taught all this by the Quran. And the Islam religion was begun by the Prophet Muhammad, who was born back in 570 A.D. He was raised, I believe, by an uncle, and at some point they began to perceive that he was a prophet. Why they perceived this is really not that clear to me, but they considered him to be God's prophet. And so at some point, Muhammad began to receive revelations. I would say this was sometime during the between 610 A.D. and 623 A.D. During that time, Islam was basically a peaceful religion, and during this time is when Muhammad was receiving all of his revelations. Now, he claims that these revelations came from Allah, who he believes is God. Now, the Bible is that's already a problem for the Christian, from the Christian viewpoint, because God is not named Allah; He's named Jehovah, and so this is a problem from the very beginning. If you read Islam, if you read the Quran, if you study the Hadith, you can see where all of their views are based on these revelations given to this person named Muhammad, who claimed he was God's last prophet. And where do you think the source of those revelations, or what do you think the source of those revelations were? I can assure you that they didn't come from the true God. I believe they came from demons, much like Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. I forget the man's name who founded the Jehovah's Witness religion. But all of these people claim to have revelations upon which they began to build their religions. And so this is not of God. This is a religion that is not of God. Now, a lot of Christians get all excited because the Quran mentions Jesus Christ. Yes, it does. It mentions Jesus Christ as being a prophet, but not the Son of God. They do not believe that Jesus was crucified. In fact, they actually believe he was caught up to heaven and someone was crucified in his place, and Judas Iscariot is who they're referring to. Now, this is obviously against the Word of God, but this is what false religion is all about. This is the doctrine of devils. That's what this is all about. This is not about a doctrine of God. This is not a godly religion. You can see, and by the way, before I continue on, just remember that the Arabs were descendants of Ishmael, which was Abraham's son, I'm being surrounded by a lot of people who are distracting me. Just try to bear with me here. This is live. I like to do my programs live. Anyhow, Abraham, when he didn't see the promise of Isaac being fulfilled right away, had sexual relations with Hagar, and she bore to him the child Ishmael, which is where the Arabs descended from. And of course, the Arabs is where the religion of Islam was born. And so, again, one sin led to the birth of this religion. And it tells you in the book of Genesis regarding Ishmael that he will be against every man, and every man's hand will be against him. And is that not an accurate description of Islamic jihadists? They're against every man, and of course, we're now all against them, and we're trying to eliminate them as quickly as possible, because I can tell you that they mean business. These terrorist attacks are just the tip of the iceberg of what they want to do. Of course, the most notable one for the Muslims is September 11th, 2001. That was a biggie. They've not been able to come up to that level since then, but they're certainly trying. They're certainly planning it, and it's only by the grace of God that it hasn't yet happened. So make no mistake about it. That's what these people want to do, and it's all based on a 9th century view of the world, which was created by the Prophet Muhammad and his so-called revelations that came to him from the so-called God Allah and were written down in the Quran. And so that's what they base all of their beliefs upon, and they take it literally, they take it seriously, and they mean business, and you better know that. And of course, I believe there's only one man that can save us from he's going to save us, but it's God's hand through him. and that's Donald Trump. That's only if he gets elected. If Hillary gets elected, you might as well order the flowers, because this country as you know it is done. Make no mistake about that. And so this is why these things are happening. And these people who are carrying out these attacks are not extremists. They take the Quran literally, and the Quran literally tells them to, you can just take one sutra, chapter 489, where it tells them to strike terror in the hearts of the infidel. And there's so many others. I could sit here all night reciting verses from the Quran about what the Muslims are commanded to do to the unbelievers. And it's not a pretty picture. I mean, one sutra talks about cutting off fingers, cutting off heads. I mean, this is not a joke to them. They take this literally. And wherever they go, they try and take over. Just take Dearborn, Michigan, for example, now called Dearbornistan, like they call London, Londonistan, because these people are taking over. That's what they believe they are supposed to do. And so they do it slowly but surely and steadily, one thing after the other, one part after the other. And like I said, they're now trying to implement Sharia law into our justice system, and they've already had some success with that in Dearborn, Michigan, and other places. And so this is not a time to let down your guard. This is a time to be following Jesus Christ closely. And I would urge you all to be in prayer. I would urge you all to be in prayer about this upcoming election, because this is a very serious matter. This is basically a life and death decision people are making. And if enough people make the wrong decision, we are going to be plunged into eternal hell here in America, the likes of which you've never before seen. And so I just wanted to let you all know that. That's the purpose of this program. This is deception. This is demonic deception. Islam is demonic deception. It is a demonic religion, a diabolical religion, and it came from the Satan himself. And these people have had a lot of success. God prophesied that they would have a lot of success. And it is only by the hand of God that we've been spared to the extent that we have, because I am certain, very certain, particularly if these people get a hold of the nuclear weapons, it's all over. Now, I don't see anything in the Bible that indicates that's going to happen. In fact, what we see happening, you can find in the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39, where it talks about in his Russian Islamic coalition of nations that comes against Israel. And it appears, if you read those verses there in Ezekiel, that some type of nuclear conflagration takes place. And God actually wipes out the Russians and the Islamists. And so if you want to know the outcome of the Islamic religion, you need look no further than the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39. And so that's what we're headed towards. So I don't believe that they're ever going to come up to the level of a worldwide religion. They're attempting to do it, and they're having a lot of success. But God is going to stop them in their tracks. And hopefully he stops them in their tracks here, because if Donald Trump gets elected, he'll do just that. But if that fails to materialize, then there's only one alternative, and that's Hillary, and that's the end of America as you know it. That will be the time. You need to be following God at all times. But, I mean, if she ever gets elected, it's over for America. I just want you all to know that. So, anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and close out the program, but I hope it's helped you a little bit to understand where Islam originated and what it's all about. Because if you read all of the wars of the Muslims, I mean, they were a bloodthirsty group of individuals who didn't take no for an answer. You either subjected yourselves to them or they killed you, and sometimes even when you subjected yourselves to them, when people did subject themselves to them, rather, they were killed. They were executed. I mean, they mean business. And they want to that same mentality guides them and directs them every day in all of their plannings to overthrow America and the rest of the world. And you need to know that. Okay, I hope this message has helped you all. I'm going to go ahead and give you the website for the program, which is at this time it's temporarily using this website until I can get the website I want. And the name of the website is worldwideendtimeradio.com. You can go to that website. There's a lot of useful and helpful materials uploaded there that I believe if you avail yourselves of those, you'll be blessed. And of course, I do have a Facebook page, which I've named Deception Detective at Facebook/Deceptive Detective. Facebook.com/Deception Detective. If you enter that search term, it'll take you right to my Facebook page, and I'd appreciate it if you go there, that you like it. There's not much up there yet because I haven't had the time to do much, but there's a couple of things there, and hopefully you'll like the page, and I would appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out the program, and as always, I leave you with this reminder to keep the faith and defend the truth. Have a good night, everybody.